So I'm going to show you how to create concentric mow lines, or the mow lines that follow curves around an Inkscape shape. Um, so let's just jump into Inkscape. So here is my Inkscape file, my Inkscape shapes, all of them. And I saved my original to a different file name just because I didn't want to mess with my original and screw everything up. So I'd highly recommend you do that. Remember, we want to do things non-destructively. So here's all my Inkscape shapes and the concentric mow lines that I want to create. And you can create concentric mow lines around any shape. You could do it around the bunkers here if you wanted. You could do it around these little rough, deep rough areas I have. But for this course, what I want to do is I want to create mow lines that go around the fairways and the greens. And I want to create like 3 or 4 that like follow this contour. So for all these, so be around this one over here, around this fairway. So I'm going to show you how I would do that. So right now I have all my Inkscape shapes in this file. I'm going to select one of my fairways first. So I got this fairway selected. And I'm going to come up here, and we've done this before. We're going to do Edit, Select Same, Fill Color. So now I have all of my fairways selected. Now if I hold down Shift, I can also select this green down here. So now I have all my fairways in this one green. But if I come up here to Edit and then select Same again, Fill Color, I now have all my fairways and all my greens selected. And if I come up here to Path and Union, I now just joined them all together. Now they disappeared, but that's just because they're hidden. They got moved down in the hierarchy a little bit. So let me do edit. So now I have that new union selected. I'm going to do invert selection. And because now it's going to have everything selected but that, I'm going to right click, hide selected objects. So now you can see what that union looks like, which is my fairways and my greens. And to show you guys a good example of, or to help visualize what's going on, I'm going to turn my whole 99 back on so that you can see. It's just much easier when there's no white background. So now that I've got these selected, I need to start making my concentric mow lines. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to select that object. First of all, let's go up here to Edit, Preferences. And now you need to go to the step section and you need to decide how wide you want your mow line. So I'm going to make we've gone through this before in the Inkscape tutorials, but this says 2.25 for my inset outside. That means that every time I do an outset, it's going to be 2.25 meters inside of Unity. So that's the mow lines I like, about 2.25 meters. You could go wider, you could go thinner. It's up to you, but that's what I'm doing here. So now back inside of Inkscape with my new Union fairway / greens selected, I'm going to come up here to my fill and stroke here, and I'm going to change these so they are white. All right, so now I've got this white area. My fairways and greens are now all white, and here's the layer here. Now I'm going to duplicate that, Control D, and you can see I get a new layer here, which is the exact same white layer I just had. I'm going to outset that, Control 0. So now that just got a little bit bigger by 2.25 meters or 2.25 millimeters in Inkscape. And now I'm going to change that color to black. And if I come back here and I move it down so it's underneath the other one, if I can remember where that was at, maybe I'd move it down one more. There it is. So here's the original white one here, okay? And here's the new black one. And if I zoom in, you can see, right, the start of what essentially are my mow lines. So I got my white, which is my original, and I got my black. So if I select my black one again, which is this guy right here, I do Control D, and then I outset it again, Control 0. So that just outset it another 2.25 meters. I come up here and now change it to white. And if I come back and I move it down to the bottom here, You can see now I have a white, black, white. And let me do one more. Highlight this, Control D, outset it again, change this to black, so we're alternating essentially black and white back and forth. Come back here, and then I can move it down. Now there's more efficient ways of doing this, but I'm just showing it what's easiest to show you how the clearest way to show you guys how I'm doing that. Now, you can see I got these lines through the middle here. The reason that happened is because I had segmented my fairways out for Inkscape, for some things I was doing. You might not have this issue, but it's something that can be easily fixed inside of Photoshop, and I'll show you that. But now we've got the makings of some concentric mow lines for the entire, all my fairways and all my greens. So let's turn off my hole 99 and zoom out just a tad here. And now I'm going to export this. Do File, Export, 8192, 8192. Select this. I'm going to go to my satellite shader folder that I created. I'm going to call this Molines 2. And now I'm exporting that. So now if I go into Photoshop, and in Photoshop I've got my Molines folder here. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it Concentric. Enter. And then if I go back into find my Molines export that I just did, I called it Molines 2. Where is it? Here it is. Drop this into Photoshop. Let me zoom out a tad. And just like always, I'm going to drag this until it says 8192. Yep, there we go, 8192, and change the name of this back to Molines 2. That's fine. And now you can begin to see the makings of our concentric Molines layer here. And if I change this opacity down to, let's say 3, and I zoom in, you can start to see what this is beginning to look like, right? Now I still have hard edges here, so I definitely want to do something about that. So let me go into my Molines folder here. Let me change this opacity back up to 100 again. Filter, I mean, we've done this before. Select, okay, so this is a good example. Right now, this is a smart object. In order for me to make changes, certain changes like blurring, I have to right click on this and do Rasterize Layer. And as soon as I do that, now I can do things like blur. So let me go back up here, Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And let's keep it at 2.5, that's pretty good. So now you can see I got a little bit of a blurred, and if I change this opacity down to like 3 again, say 3 or 4, again, that's just a starting point. And you can start to see that I got those lines there. Let me move this back up again. Now, if I wanted to edit this, I can do that. I can either work destructively or non-destructively, whatever I want to do. I'm going to work destructively because it's not that hard to do here. And I'm going to select my Molines layer. I'm going to come over here to my brush tool. Where is it? Brush tool. I'm going to make sure I have white selected, and it's going to be hardness. Maybe make it a little bit 0. There we go. On my Molines, and I have white selected. I can just start to kind of brush over this a little bit and fix that. And maybe I want to go back and maybe blur this stuff again. Here, blur that. Kind of round this off just a tad. So there's also a blur tool here. I think this is it. Yeah, so here's my blur tool. I could change this size a little bit. I could change the hardness. Actually, I'm gonna leave that go. Change the size of this. So now I could just blur that out a little bit, blur that out a little bit, blur that out a little bit. And you can see now that's coming together, pretty nicely. Certainly don't have everything fixed. This area right here, essentially I just want to erase this. So if I go over here to my eraser tool, and then I have it set pretty hard, should just be able to go and just erase that. And now I have a hard edge again. I can just come back here to my blur tool and blur that edge out. And that'll look fine. I could try to fix that by using a really small brush. I could try smoothing that out there, but I think it'll look fine. But you get the idea here. Now, if I change my opacity back down to 3, and now I'm going to show you. So this is my concentric mow lines. You can see that how they're showing up now. In some areas, I might have to brush some of this stuff out because it's interfering with my rock area. Not a big deal, just have to touch a few of these things up. But I'm going to show you what happens when I turn on my straight mow lines now. Well, it's overlapping here, and I'm going to show you in the next video how to fix that.